Good evening, Somers, and welcome to our in-person, non-virtual town board meeting and work session and regular meeting combined for Thursday, July 8th, 2021. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated.
It's like we never left.
Except I'm used to having a whole table to myself.
I have a whole four-footer.
They keep elbow and tongue.
Yeah.
So, Patty, as our town clerk, can you handle our public hearings discussion?
How about roll call first?
Roll call, how about that?
Councilman William G. Faulkner.
Here, live and in person.
Councilman Richard G. Clinchik. Councilman Anthony J. Sirico.
Here.
Councilman Thomas A. Garrity Jr.
Here.
Supervisor Rick Morrissey.
Present. Okay, our first item on our agenda tonight are public hearings, and we are canceling them. And Patty, if you could give us the reason why we're doing that.
Because we noticed them as virtual because the executive order that came out before June 24th extended the open meetings law until July 9th, which then on June 24th, the governor decided to open everything and didn't think about.
So we had to repost them as
So
in
we
person.
have to republish them as they're going to be live meetings.
Cool.
Okay, so this might be a good opportunity to talk about some of the, everyone got used to Zooming and having public meetings via Zoom. You can no longer do that with exception. Roland, you want to run down some of the restrictions on that
Well,
for board members of committees?
Even without the executive order, you can have the Zoom capabilities for the public, for consultants, Patty, for the residents. But board members, at least a quorum, has to be in the room. And for the board members who may choose to be remote on occasion, they have to be in a public place in order to legitimately Zoom into a meeting. So if you're in a hotel, you have to be in the lobby. You can't be in your
Interesting.
hotel room. You cannot count towards the quorum. The quorum, again, has to be in the room. And you cannot vote remotely.
Interesting.
Okay,
So it really limits the viability of that for a board member.
now,
For those of us who don't vote, and for the public who might choose to stay home but still participate in a town meeting, Zooming could remain important.
So let me give you an example. Partners in Prevention, right? It's not a board, it's a committee, serves as a, but essentially there are minutes and they open the minutes and there are votes, but it's not a formal board. So can they operate?
A committee that doesn't, they generally don't vote on matters that are binding or contestable.
Exactly.
So there's a gray area there. I think committees can continue remotely.
Or do it combined?
If the town board wishes to allow that.
Okay.
But certainly your
Zoning boards.
your
and-
zoning board and your planning board, they have to at least do a hybrid version.
now, just, because I think there's one other element. So let's take a board member that's remote, they want to participate in the meeting, they can't be considered quorum, they cannot vote, they have to be in a public place. Do they have to notice where they're going to be? Is there a requirement for them to notice
Yes,
where they are?
There's a requirement that they notice where they are in case a member of the public wants to attend.
So how do they do
That's the reason why
that?
they have to be in a public place.
So let's say I'm in Aruba and I can't vote, but I want to
Yeah,
be part of the
You
meeting.
just have to announce it, because you have to be able to be on a screen in the meeting room.
Right.
And the public in the meeting room has to be able to converse with you back
So
and
where am
forth.
I noticing it? Am I noticing it in Somers, or am I noticing it
No,
in
you'd have to
Aruba?
announce at the beginning of the meeting here
Oh, just-
where you were located.
So okay, I guess I'm,
I don't think there's a note, there's not an
that's what I'm
advance.
thinking, that you have to notice in a
I have
paper?
not read that there's an advance
I
notice
thought that you
requirement.
did,
In advance?
because if, say, you were in Aruba and there were Somers residents in Aruba, they could attend where you were.
Oh boy, I hope nobody's
I'm
life
not
ever
aware
gets to
of that.
those levels, where you're going to a town
I didn't
board
mean
meeting in
to cause
Aruba.
more confusion about this,
I'm not aware
but,
of that, I mean, it makes some sense, but I'm not aware of it, that it's a requirement.
right, I wouldn't be in Aruba in the summer anyway, so. All right, well, moving along, maybe we'll get further clarification on it.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not
there,
aware.
it was part of one of the open meetings, seminars, and it was like, it did happen, and it was somebody who was in a community in Florida, and there were residents of their community who happened to be in Florida, and they were able to attend.
But how do you notice it? And how do you know
I guess
who to
it-
notice it to?
And then, I don't know.
You know, I haven't read that.
Well, like we would, the Somers Record, but if you're not in the municipality, do you take the local newspaper where you are? I don't know.
So
All
do
right,
you-
well, we'll get
So
clarification
do
on
you
it.
think this is under review, or is this is hard and fast right now? Are they sort of like
I'm
rolling
told
something
that
out with
there
adjustments?
There are bills in Albany that would legitimatize Zoom meetings permanently for boards,
Okay,
but it's not likely that it'll be taken up before next year.
okay.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
Right, well,
But Somers will be meeting live and in person moving forward.
that we will be. Okay, the first item on the agenda is public comment. I'll make a motion to open public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. All right, public comment is an opportunity for the public to comment on any issue that concerns the town that is not on the agenda. If an item is on the agenda, you can comment during that period of time. So is there anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, I'm going to make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and so moved. Okay, next order of business this evening is department reports. Patty?
I report to the town clerk, building inspector, zoning board of appeals, plumbing, bureau of fire prevention, parks and recreation, planning and engineering, tax receiver, and director of finance.
Thank you. All right, the next item of business, I'll make this very quick because we have our county executive with us, who we're looking forward to hearing from. Just quickly, Westchester County active COVID cases are just a little bit above 200. That's a great number, and we haven't been there for many, many months. I think there were 10 cases reported over the yesterday or the day before that. Somers, we only have three active cases and 0 new cases. So I want to take this opportunity to sincerely thank the Somers community for doing what we asked you to do. The businesses all cooperated, the citizenry as well obeyed mask regulations, washed their hands when they did come into this building. And I just want to note that the townhouse, town business never really closed. We had appointments being made, and just recently, the end of June, we opened up to the public
First. June 1st,
June 1st. So,
with no check-in, no masks.
right. So we still, if you are not vaccinated and you're in the room, we have masks in the back. We ask you to put them on. If you are vaccinated, there is no need to wear a mask.
And Greg, I'll just jump on that a little bit, just to say, to the majority of the people in the town, and it's the vast majority, I'll thank you also, because I was running the COVID task force, we had somebody sitting up at the front, and I will say 99% of the people who came through here didn't give any issues. They signed what we asked them to sign. They answered the questions. They let us take their temperatures with no complaints. They understood. They got it. And as a result, I think I don't think we traced anything back, any cases coming out of the townhouse from the public coming in.
No.
So it was a huge success. We put in everything we needed to put in, and there's still things here today to protect both the employees, which was obviously very important to us, as well as the citizens of the town who came in. So thank you very much, because I would say 99%. You always get that one person who comes in and just starts complaining, but they complain about everything. So but 99% were fantastic, and we thank all the cooperation. It was much appreciated.
Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item, I'd like to introduce County Executive George Latimer. I have to say George has been quite the leader over the last year and a half. He got us weekly updates, sometimes more than once a week when necessary. He's pulled Westchester County together in a way I haven't seen in quite some time with these weekly communiques. He's got municipalities talking to each other on these weekly calls. He brings in state representatives and county representatives from different departments. And George, I just want to commend you for a job very, very well done on the COVID issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor Rick and members of the town board. And I appreciate you allowing me to visit now that we're in person again. This is my third time to speak with you. The last time was on Zoom, but I enjoy being here personally with you. And thank you for your partnership. I think accurately you have complimented the people and the government of the town of Somers. You've done an exemplary job in dealing with this. You have a large senior population in Heritage Hills and elsewhere that were very vulnerable, and yet the numbers in this town and across the county really were very good. Just to reinforce what the supervisor shared, our current numbers right now are really positive. Nothing's done until it's all over. But at this stage of the game, we have in the vicinity of about 200 active cases of COVID right now, which means people who have tested positive in the last 2 weeks. To give you a framework, in the middle of January, which is about 6 months ago, we had a total of 11,500 active cases in Westchester County. So over the course of these 6 months, we've gone from 11,500 to 200. And the clear difference is the vaccination process, which I'll touch on in just a second. The breadth of the infection is the number of active cases. The depth of it is how many people are hospitalized and how many fatalities we've had. And in the case of hospitalizations, we currently have a number that's under 20 people hospitalized countywide. Back in mid-January, we had 588 people hospitalized. So that's a major drop in terms of the hospitalization numbers. And the fatality numbers, well, we've lost overall 2,293 people, just shy of 2,300. We have not had a fatality in 10 days. And that's the first time we've gone 10 days countywide without a fatality to COVID since this began, back in March of 2020 with the first documented cases down in New Rochelle. So I do think that the credit goes to the people of Westchester who embraced the vaccination process. We're approaching 80% in Westchester County of adults 18 and over that have been vaccinated with at least one shot of whatever the respective vaccination is. So you assume in the next 3 to 4 weeks, the remainder who have one shot will have their second shot, and that'll put us solidly. I think the number I saw when I left the office earlier today was 77.8. So it's a little shy of 80%. And I think we're pretty much at the point, if you're 18 years and older, because you've had access to the vaccine now for quite a while, that basically everybody who has wanted a shot has received it. And that portion of our population that hasn't been vaccinated is basically because they choose not to do that. And there will be discussion in the proper time about what happens from there. We have not mandated anything in terms of vaccinations. We've respected the freedom of individuals to do what they think is right, but we also know that clearly the vaccination process has been the reason why we've had this drop in infection, clearly. Now, we don't know what the Delta variant, the most recent variant, will do. I'm sure there'll be more variants. I'm not a medical scientist, so I follow what I hear, as you do, on television. Everything we're told is that these variants are more communicative, the disease becomes more communicable, but it does not mean that the disease is more severe, and it does not mean that the existing vaccines are somehow less effective against the variant. So we think we're in a position right now that's pretty solid. It is the summertime, less likely that the disease will be transferred when we're outdoors more. Probably the acid test comes when we get to the fall, schools are back in session, and I think we're heading toward a normal school season at the beginning of the season, and we'll see what happens with vaccinations for young people. You may be aware that we had a pop-up vaccination effort at the Somers Middle School today from 2 to 6:30, because now the target of those who are willing to take vaccines are those that fall into that 12 to 16 range, for which the Pfizer vaccine has been determined to be effective. And we're waiting to hear what medical science says. They're testing on those under the age of 12. If the feds come out and say we can do that, then that'll happen. That'll be the next cohort of things. And we're also looking to determine whether or not we're going to need booster shots. The most recent information we've had is that they believe the vaccines are good for a year. So if you were vaccinated January, February of this year, then that takes you to the end of this year, which is about 6 months away. If you had your shots later in the year this year, then you're that much further away. We'll see what they tell us. At this stage of the game, the county center is going to continue to be a vaccination center. We've talked to the state. We think that's been pretty well run. And if we have a central vaccination center like that, that's helpful. But now we're at a point where local doctors and medical groups and so forth, if they can issue the vaccination, then it becomes more normal. It's what you do if you're going to have a flu shot every year, or what you're going to do if you vaccinate your children against the normal childhood diseases. And if we get to that level of normalcy, then we think we've turned the corner on this. We're not 100% sure, and we're going to keep showing diligence and everything. The governor, as you know, Rick and I both know, sets these rules, and then we sit around trying to figure out between the county and the town exactly how to administer them, and we use our best common sense, and I think so far we've gotten pretty well on it. But I'm here to thank you for your diligence and your work in this community and our neighboring communities. And you know, there are parts of the country, parts of the state that haven't responded as well. We are not on an island in Westchester County. Right here, you cross into Putnam like that. I live in a part of the county right next door to Connecticut. So what happens in the region is important, but we control what we control. You're involved in Somers. You've done a good job in Somers, and I think that's a good positive step to go forward. I also want to make a statement about something else, and Rick and I have had communication on this, and that is the concerns that you've had over the way the federal monitor on the housing settlement, which goes back prior to my term, has identified the work that Somers has done for the public record. Since this is a public meeting, I assume it may be taped and transcript. Somers has done its job. In the eyes of the county, Somers Town has done its job to satisfy the requirements that have been made on it and every other municipal government.
Thank you, George.
And your
I appreciate
supervisor
that.
has been articulate about wanting to make sure that's a clear public statement. We believe we're just a few weeks away from getting the final sign-off from the feds. And if we get that from the court, then we know we'll put that behind us. We will try to do affordable housing as you see fit, as we see fit. We know we need affordable housing in the county, but we put the lawsuit behind us. But again, you've done your job on that score as well, and you should be duly proud of what you've done.
Thank you, George. Your support of
Appreciate
that
that.
is fantastic. I mean, it really is. And Rick's right. We saw, you know, the letter and just went,
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
it bothered me too, you know. We can't always get them to rewrite the report, but we sent a response within a proper zone. And there are folks, you know, who launched the lawsuit that don't think we've done enough as a county. You know, even though we've allocated money and so forth, I think they have a mission. We'll deal with the court,
Right.
and then we'll worry
Well, we
about
thank you for your support.
those advocates.
Yeah.
I want to update you on some of the money that the county is putting into two major county facilities that are within your town. In Muscoot Farm, we have allocated in our capital budget $7 million for improvements at Muscoot. They're in the design phase now, so it'll take a little while until everything is done, and then you start to see the construction work. But we're putting, out of that $7 million, $3.3 million to improve the main building. We're putting 2.5 into infrastructure improvements around, like the parking lot, which needs it, and walkways and so forth. And then we have 1.2 million of that 7 million set aside for bathrooms, septics, and things of that nature. And you know, without editorializing too much, Muscoot, Lasden, and the other parts of Westchester County's park system are assets. They are not liabilities in our way of thinking. We invest in it. The way I've described it is that when you're spending money, when you spend money within a year and you consume the benefit of that spending, you are investing money when you spend money in a year and it has a 20-year payout. These improvements to Muscoot Farm, we think, will take us at least 10 to 15 years forward so that it serves as an asset. It's a countywide asset, but it's in your town. And so to the extent that people go there for the farmers market that we have, as well as seeing the animals, the little Groundhog Day thing we do with the chicken and all that stuff, hopefully it'll be something that will look better and fresher, and it's a reason for people to come to Somers and go to the ice cream stand up the block and put some money in your economy and hopefully help you a little bit. So that's on Muscoot, $7 million. We've also put aside, budgeted already, $3.5 million for Lasden work and infrastructure on that property. That property's in a little bit better shape than Muscoot is, and it houses our Veterans Museum and the Arboretum. And we do have a very active Friends group there that's been very generous. Many people who live in Somers are part of that group, but that's a $3.5 million allocation. When we do our capital budget for this year, which we have to submit to the Board of Legislators by October, I assume we'll have some additional capital spending, and we welcome your input on any spending on any county facility, road, anything in your town that is a county asset that you think we ought to invest money in. You can have a discussion amongst the board. Send us a letter. I'd say if you can send it to us by somewhere by the 15th of September. We'll be in the last month of our preparation work, and then we submit it to the Board of Legislators. We'll try to include whatever we can up front. And then, of course, the board will deliberate. Your legislators, you have part of 2 districts, then can input on it and so forth. But we want to try to keep these assets up to date to reflect well on the county and reflect well on the town. The state and the federal government has put money aside for emergency rental assistance for those individuals that face the potential of eviction because they've lost their job due to COVID. This program, we always have an acronym, it's called ERAP. It's a state and federal program. The county had an allocation of money from the feds. We put it into the state pot, and the state is administering the program. We think that's the smarter way to administer it on a longer basis. And individuals can apply if they know that they have a long arrearage in the rental unit they're in, and landlords as well, if they have tenants that they don't really want to evict. What they really want is the back rent to help them be solvent because they've had to pay taxes and oil and whatever else they've had. The process for organizing that is pretty simple. We have some flyers we'll leave here for you. Mm-hmm. You can circulate them if you want. The enrollment period has been open for a while, and based on the immediate statistic, we have 1 person from Somers that has signed up for it. But the bottom line is it is open to anyone who feels that they would be eligible for it. And what we basically advise people to do is dial 211, which is the information hotline that the county has through United Way of Westchester Putnam. And if a person calls, whether they're a tenant or a landlord, and they say, I'm in an arrearage situation, how can I handle this? They will direct you to a not-for-profit that will help that person sign up for the program. Like every program, it's complicated, it's difficult. The average person, myself, if I look at the forms, I could freeze up. This will be people who are experienced in being able to help folks apply. So I would recommend for any landlord, anybody who has rental property or is in rental property within the town, if they're concerned about past rent that's due, 211, they can connect into the system. As I said, I'll leave you some flyers which you can use, distribute however you see fit. This does not cost the town any money. It's really more to make sure everybody knows it's available, because like any ship, once the closing date comes, the ship sets sail, and if you're not in the program, then you've got a problem from either the tenant or the landlord side.
Yeah,
So-
George, we have that information posted on our
You
website
do?
as well.
Okay, fine. Very good. The issue of police reform was put before all of us last year in the aftermath of the Minnesota incident with George Floyd. We have put together, as you did as well, a police reform task force with a host of recommendations. The one that I want to highlight here that the county has agreed to do, we plan to have these set up by October, are mental health response teams that would be available anywhere in the county to respond along with local police to deal with an incident that is identified through the dispatch and the call-in as being a person who is in some kind of mental health situation. The police are properly trained to handle these situations. However, in some cases, a mental health professional can de-escalate it better as long as there's a police presence to deal with whatever might be a violent outcome. And it's not possible for every town, village, or city police department to have that kind of expertise in-house. So we've made the commitment ultimately to have 8 of these teams in place. We're going to try to have 3 of them in place by October. We ultimately intend for them to be all over the county in 24 hours, a day availability, which would then be someone calls in perhaps to your police department if it's not dispatched through 60 Control, and your police dispatcher determines this is a case where we need to have the county mental health professionals come out and respond with the local police, and then the incident commanders will make the decision who does what and how they do it. It's outside of my knowledge, professional knowledge. But this is one of the recommendations made on our task force that we felt was clearly something that the county should do regionally and not have to require each town to try to put together the money. It's about $1 million per team. And so we intend to do that as part of it. We'll get you more of the details, and I'm sure your chief of police will meet in due time once we're ready, work through the logistics of it. Basically, you'll be the one at the local level to determine if it requires this team response, and hopefully we'll have it structured so that they can respond in real time. I don't quite know how that's going to happen in a county as big as Westchester, and certainly at the outset it's going to be hard to do when we just start with 3 teams. But we'll start where we start, and we'll try to get to the 8 teams, and we think that will be a helpful step.
So
George, to your point, would they be strategically located in the county, like the airport or?
Yeah,
Other-
we will work out of a couple of different key areas. Now, for example, we operate the local police presence in Mount Kisco. So in the initial stage, we might operate out of the Mount Kisco precinct. A Mount Kisco response to Somers is, fairly reasonable. We might operate one of the teams out of our headquarters down in Hawthorne, which could then handle things that are more Rivertown oriented, and we'd have to determine how we would house the 3rd team, so the response would be real time. We know that we can't have somebody in New Rochelle get up here in real time and be effective. We haven't figured out the logistics yet. That's what we're working on. We're looking at an October 1st launch for that, so we've got a little time to work out the details.
So, when I think of it, maybe the public thinks of this, they think maybe of a violent interaction, but you might run into situations where there might be a suicide or an overdose.
Exactly.
So from a scope point of view, what's going to be their mandate? It's going to be
They're going to
broad-
have to work out those protocols, and that will be done by the police professionals and the mental health professionals. Our Commissioner of Public Safety, Tom Gleason, and our Commissioner of Mental Health, Michael Orth, will have teams of people working on that. The classic example that was given was one in Rochester, New York, where a fatality occurred. It was in the wintertime, and a man was out in a public setting in Rochester, and he was naked in February, clearly was not in his right mind. The report came in, and it got sort of a SWAT response, and it ended in a tragedy. So the hope is that if the information that you get, the dispatcher handles it from the person calling in, can ascertain that the problem with the person, if the guy's a gun, it's a violent situation. If he doesn't have a gun, but he's acting in a certain strange way, that would be, okay, let's send the mental health team in with the police, and the police would take the secondary role, and the mental health would take the primary role, see if they can resolve it without having to go to the police doing that, and also without asking police to be social workers, because so many times that's what we do. We dump everything at the doorstep of the police department to respond in whatever way is possible. And so, but we have to work out details. This is July. Hopefully we'll have these things lined up by the time we're ready to go in October. And if at any point in time you want to have a conference call with your police officials
Sure.
and our key people, we'll be happy to set that up.
That'd be great.
So during the police reform discussions with our in-town committees, this did come up as a major issue, and just to see this type of quick response of forming 3 teams that are going to be ready to go in October is incredible, and I'm sure our police in town, our town police and the state police will be very appreciative to have this resource when needed. Like you said,
Right.
they have to work out what those situations will be, but they do occur, and maybe a police response is not always the most appropriate.
Right. Well, I think, what we try to do, and it's evident in some of these other things, and I'll wrap up my report in a second so you can get on with your business. The basic philosophy that we have is that we are a regional government, and there are certain things that you do regionally better than you do locally, but there are things you do locally better than we do regionally. So what we're striving to do is figure out what can we do that complements what the local governments do around the county. Now, there are local governments, and then there are local governments. There's North Salem, and there's Yonkers, and those are both local governments of different size and scope. There are things that represent how we can best be a partner to you. This is an example of one of them, but it requires the county to have a different headset, which is to look at what does the local government already do well, and then what do they need support in that we can then complement, and that's the spirit of which this comes from. And they'll work it out. Nothing's ever easy. It never happens the first week the way you want it to. But and also, I know very well that your chief of police and our public safety department have a good working relationship as professionals, and I have a lot of confidence that they'll work out the logistics and the details. But I did want to report that to you because it was one of our major recommendations, one of your recommendations, and we're working together on it.
Good.
Normally, I talk about power issues, but I don't have to talk about that here. You're well represented in NYSEG. Just suffice to say that our relationship with NYSEG and then elsewhere in the county with Con Edison, we work at it to deal with things that might happen or might not happen with ELSA and so forth. And we have tried to, with Con Edison, outside of this immediate area, work with providing staging areas and whatever it is that the utility thinks we can help them with in order for them to respond in an effective way. But as I said, you got that covered. We count on Tom making those connections. You should be aware, you may be aware that we have countywide, next to last issue, countywide, we have launched an effort to work with local governments on the area of food scrap recycling. We renegotiated a contract. I understand that towns in this area of the county are not part of the solid waste district, but we renegotiated our relationship with Charles Point to carve out a certain amount of garbage that would otherwise go to Charles Point that would be used for food scrap recycling that could be composted in an effective composting way. A number of communities in the county, particularly those that don't have open land, when you get down county, some of the villages and the cities just do not have extra land to be able to compost. So we took on the responsibility of paying for the transport of their compost collected material to try to make it easier for them and affordable for them to pull out of the system. It may well be that towns that have the space area are already doing composting on the level that they feel is effective. Fine with us, no need to get involved in that. We did create a compost model down on our Grasslands campus, which opened a couple of months ago, and that's there for those communities that want to go down and see how it could work if they want to develop something like that. But the mission is basically, as best as we can, to try to get that portion of the waste stream out. It saves us money. It's a lot cheaper to compost it than to burn it tonnage over at Charles Point, and it's the environmentally right thing to do. It's one of those things that we do is one more step on an environmental program and plan. If there are any issues on that, we can chat off to the side. I'm not exactly sure how Somers operates in this area, but the 17 municipalities that are part of the solid waste district, it's all voluntary. The ones that join, the ones that don't, but we're trying to make it available for everybody. And then the final issue, which is a little more complicated than a briefing like this would be, is we are working on the radio system replacement project. It's a big project. It's complicated. What I think the best thing I can say from the microphone tonight is we should set up a conference call with relevant people. Rick, that you and your people can get on the phone, ask the more detailed questions. We have people on our team that can probably answer them better than I can. The mission obviously is more general. We want to try to replace and expand, for our purposes, the system of communications that we have, benefits the fire departments, the emergency services, the Beeline bus system, and so forth. It's expensive. It's going to take time for us to adjust to it. We know that we've got some older sites that have to be renovated, and we need more sites, but all of that is a give and take between the municipality and the county. So if you think it's wise, we can talk tomorrow or first part of next week, set up a conference call. We'll have our people on the phone with you. I probably won't even be on the phone because when we get into some of these technical areas, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. But we'll see how it works for Somers and what would help you and be complementary to what you're trying to accomplish here.
So from my perspective, I'd just like to thank you for your partnership. You referred to the NYSEG situation, and during ESIES, we had a relatively good experience after having 3-4 years of multiple problems, but we did have a huge problem with Altice.
Yes.
And we partnered with, with the county, and we were on the task force. I think you called it Westchester United.
Right. United Westchester.
We pushed back very hard with the northern communities, and we were able to successfully get, a settlement with Altice, something like $72 million at the state level. But I have to say that, it's still not there. And so, we'll look forward to working with you, with you guys to maybe take this to the next step. They really haven't been responsive to communicating some of the, the benefits that will inure to us as a result of some of those settlements. And they had promised to explain to us, their strategic plan for the rollout and modernization of their network. So we need to bring them to the table again.
I think it's a good suggestion, and I'm happy to take a call next week, and we'll have some conversation. We were obviously unhappy with the result. We all were unhappy with the result, but we were really surprised that they had sort of almost disinvested in things that we
Absolutely.
thought that was already there, and it was Isaias that pointed out the problem. So it was there all along. We just didn't have it tested to the point of finding out about it. And I think you're right. I think we still have ground to cover with Altice.
You tend to lose momentum when the storm passes, right? And I think that's where we're at. But I think we need to situate ourselves for the next response.
I think you're right. And then we are entering, with Elsa coming up the coast, we are now entering we've entered the hurricane season. It's going to be with us for the next few months.
Right.
And as we saw with Isaias on one level seemed like a nothing storm. It came through for a couple of hours. It was not something that was hyped heavily all that time in advance. And yet the destruction that it did in a very short period of time really set us back sort of dramatically. So this is one more example of, measure twice and cut once, and this is the time for us to measure twice. So I would agree with you.
So it's interesting. In years past, we've had Sandy and Irene, and the major concern here was loss of electricity and power. Somers and Northern Westchester, NYSEG's done a great job with hardening their infrastructure. And now it's really when you lose internet service,
Right.
especially during COVID. And I think this is what heightened the Altice situation. When we were knocked out, we actually tracked down where the break was. And I saw a guy in a utility truck with spaghetti putting fiber optic things back together. So when, it's not like a power line where they can replace it or put a junction box in.
Right.
I mean, so they have to come up with a new or better way of restoring cable and internet service, because it has become a utility. It's a necessary utility in this day and age.
And you've also put your finger on what really struck us during Isaias is people working out of their home, and the daytime demand for that system to work was much greater than would normally happen if most of us were at our place of business. So a worthwhile follow-up point as well. So we'll put that on our hit list, and then also the conference call on the radio project.
Great.
It's very important to have a governmental, municipal, regulatory response to bring these guys to the table.
Right.
To fortify the Altice network is not a matter of having more people connecting wires. It's about redesign of network, making investments to reroute, something that's more intelligent to respond to emergency actions, and then have inventory on hand so you can deploy it when there's a problem.
I think I see somebody that had the committee that we need to have to do this. That's
Be
what
happy
happens when
to.
you show unique insight into a problem.
Yes.
We let you be the lead agent for us.
We've had some good people down in the county as well working at it.
Well, we're happy to work with you. Mr. Supervisor, thank you for the courtesy of time. If there's any questions you'd like for me to handle, I will. If not, I'm joined, by the way, by Ellen Hendricks, who's our Assistant Director of Intergovernmental Matters. She works on the intergovernmental side. That's with municipal governments. And so I appreciate her liaison with you and Steve Bass, who works with her on these ongoing things.
You're doing a great job. We appreciate it. We appreciate you keeping us informed. You come before us, multiple times, and you always have good information. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and once again, I'll just reiterate the job well done. over the last year and a half with this COVID crisis, worldwide pandemic. We all had to deal with it. We all dealt with it our own individual way, but you really brought these municipalities together, keeping us informed of what the county, state, and CDC were doing. And just want to commend you once again for your.
Thank you. We appreciate it on behalf of all the people that are part of the team that I'm on, and we get back to normal. That'll be our reward.
Good.
Yeah, you're
Thank you.
here.
Thank you all very much for your time. Have a wonderful
Okay,
evening.
be well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Would you mind if I
Yeah,
move these up and move you down to?
yeah, I mean, we pretty much covered it in some respect.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, George and Ellen, for taking the trip to the North Country. Our next agenda item would be the Telecommunications Task Force update. We're going to kind of move that down the agenda so we can hear from some presenters that are here. So let's jump to number 4 on our agenda, which is proposed tractor supply development at 23 Clayton Boulevard. MacV Development.
Yes, thank you. Members of the board, my name is Matt Darling. I'm with Mac5 Development, and we're a real estate development company out of West Hartford, Connecticut. And we build tractor supplies, and Tractor Supply has been a tenant of ours for about 20 years. We built about 30 of their stores across New England and New York. I'm here tonight basically as an interested party, in 23 Clayton Boulevard. I do not have it under contract. I don't own the property. I'm just here to discuss the potential development and how the board may feel about development of that nature on the property, and talk about the hurdles and maybe the solutions to some of those that may come up. One being that it's currently a zone PH. It's in a planned hamlet zone. As you may know, Tractor Supply is a 20,000 square foot retailer. They sell farm and garden supplies and pet food and hardware and things of that nature. But it is within a 20,000 square foot box, in addition to a 5,000 square foot greenhouse and about 15,000 square feet of outdoor sales that would be in a fenced area.
Like a yard, though, they would
Well,
have
like-
like the supplies and stuff there.
Exactly. Yeah, they call it the FOD, the fenced outside display. It's more of a display of merchandise, not a storage area. It's not merchandise that's stored for later use, to eventually make its way inside the store. It's merchandise that stays outside for sale. There is, with the addition of the greenhouse, which is a newer component, there will be a cash wrap outside to handle, sales of the
And-
merchandise.
Just refresh my memory. What is the total acreage of that
5.1.
parcel you're looking?
5.3.
Yep, 5 point something. And tonight, Linda Whitehead's with me, Attorney Whitehead. She is representing the sellers of the property. And if there's any questions that the board may have of her, I'm happy to have her answer them.
So just, so you talked about the footprint. What was that footprint you were thinking about?
20,000.
20,000
What about
plus?
20,000 plus 5 plus 15?
Exactly.
40,000.
And I have some examples of Tractor Supply stores. They're the same ones that I included in my packet, but I have ones printed out tonight if anybody needs them.
I'm just trying to mind my calculate. I mean, 5 acres is what, 200,000 or something like that, maybe?
Yeah, so it's a quarter of
It's
it.
a quarter of it.
Right.
But
Not 20 plus 15 plus 5, I think the 5 is included in the,
It's actually, it is 5, it's a 20,000 square foot box. Next door is a 20,000 square foot fenced area. Within that 20,000
Oh,
square
okay.
foot fenced area is a 5,000 square foot
so it's 40,
greenhouse.
but it's still 40,000. It's still the same.
Yes,
number.
it's a 40,000 square footprint.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gotten this far yet, and because I know this is very preliminary. So
Yep.
you obviously been up to the site. You have the Stop and Shop on one side, you have Avalon on the other side.
Correct.
So, Avalon, people who live there, when they open the I guess it's the easternmost side of it.
Northeast?
Northeast. When they open their doors in the morning, are they looking at the big box? Are they looking at the yard? What are they looking at?
Or
It
they
would-
step out on their veranda.
Yeah.
Given the configuration of the property, and it's deeper than it is wide, they'll probably be looking at a combination of the two. The way that I envision my engineers laying out the property would be the rear of the store facing the Stop and Shop. and the front facing the green, with the parking in between. And based on some comments from the Planning Commission, there'll be a significant amount of screening required between the two. So my vision is when they step out and look in that direction, they'll most likely look at some type of a combination of a wall with fencing and a lot of trees and shrubbery and stuff like that that would hopefully block a lot of the visibility there and just make it look.
So,
So
when I-
next,
go ahead.
so next question is, number one, what are the normal hours of a Tractor Supply? And number two,
Noise.
are there a lot of forklifts being used to move the material around during the day, the morning? Because again, you don't want somebody, I don't want to open my door, sit on my veranda, which is actually a better example, on a Saturday morning at, 8:30 having my coffee, and then
Right.
there's guys using the things to move
Gas
stuff around.
powered.
I get it. Yep. So Tractor Supply is typically open between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. There are some that go to 9 p.m. They take one truck delivery per week, which would typically be when they would use their forklift the most.
One truck delivery per week?
One truck delivery per week. They do on occasion take deliveries from UPS and FedEx, just as the people in Avalon would too.
Yep.
Amazon, everything else like that. But one truck delivery from their distribution center per week. As far as the noise is concerned, it would be traffic from customers driving in and out of the property. The forklift really stays idle. It basically stays inside of the store for the most part. Once the truck, which gets unloaded once per week, is unloaded, all of those pallets are brought inside of the store in the rear. They have about a 6,000 square foot merchandising area in the rear where they keep their pallets on several different racks and things like that. So they would use the forklift within the building to move those pallets around as they need to break them down and bring the merchandise within the retail sales area. On occasion, it would go outside and pick up, a piece of fencing or something like that that a customer may need to buy and put in the back of their vehicle. But that would be on a, once a day, twice a day kind of a thing, and it wouldn't be first thing in the morning.
Do you know the distance, like, between the edge of your commercial property, like where, not the green, the distance between what approximately is going to be from there to the nearest resident?
I don't know off the top of my head. I have not engaged my engineering firm
Okay.
to
Yeah,
look
I
at
don't know
it,
if this is
but
very
it would
preliminary,
be
but I
several
didn't know if you
hundred
had
feet. What we would do is I would put everything that I could as far away from it as I could on the property. I need a couple of drive lanes behind the building for my truck to be able to get there and unload, for a trash can essentially. But other than that, it can get tucked up as far as my setbacks would allow,
Okay.
or I should say your setbacks would allow. So I would want to push that as far back as possible, and keep it away from.
So let me pose this in a little bit different way. Do you have any existing Tractor Supply that are situated in and about residential areas?
Yes, my Newtown, Connecticut store it's on 25. It's basically on three sides. It's all residential, not dense residential, but on three sides. The left, right, and rear. On the other side would be on the other side of the street would be commercial, but that store is surrounded by primarily residents. We just did a store in Wappinger Falls, and on one side of that was about 7 or 8 homes.
And how are your relationships with these residential facilities?
Yeah, so Newtown, fantastic. Wappinger Falls, they were a little bit apprehensive going into it. Once we were complete, they were actually very thankful. They loved the design. They loved the store there. Tractor Supply is usually very well received by the general public. Mm-hmm. It's a friendly store. It's a quiet store. The merchandise is family friendly. When they sell chickens in the springtime, and so most people enjoy going there, bringing their kids there, and things like that. But when you are a resident, you're facing a commercial development. It can be a little scary. But the experience that we have being a small local development company, we are not Tractor Supply. We are their preferred developer in this region. Mm-hmm. And as I said, we've built over 30 of their stores, and so we have the experience. I'm a family man myself, born and raised in Connecticut. So we know how to engage the public and help them as needed.
How big
So-
is the store in Wappingers compared to what you're proposing here in Somers?
That'd be the same size.
The
Yep.
same size?
Yeah.
You basically use the same
These are
exact
quick-
format for all your stores, is what I read.
Yeah, yep. Now Wappinger may look a little wider because I've screened, so they have that store is laid out completely differently, and I'm unable to use that layout anymore. But that layout has a store in the front and a fenced yard in the rear and a loading area on the side. So when you're looking at the store,
Storefront's not that big.
the storefront is smaller than it really is because we've extended the face to
Accommodate.
screen off the side loading area essentially.
So, I mean, when I think through this, I always think about setbacks and making things sort of blend in appropriately. You know, it's hard to tell, it's all preliminary.
Right.
I would invite you to go down to look at, you know, where Bobo's is and just sit down there and you could see, you know, the rolling greens and how they've situated themselves and the appointments that they've done. You know, the owner is essentially in the islands, put grass and flowers, and so, you know, it's not like a bare, you know,
Right.
concrete, you know, pole with a lamp or whatever. It just
Right.
blends in. When you sit down there, you would have no idea that Route 6 is, you know, 60 feet, 70 feet away from you, and you can see, you know, a nice view. Looking at this here, you know, pushing it back as close to the shopping center would be probably, you know, looks to be desirable. You have the Muse in front of you, and on the left, on the other side, you have the Avalon. You want to buffer all that.
Of course.
The Muse has a lot of parking between it and you.
Yes.
There's
And
the road and
they have
all
that park there too.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Linda.
the other challenge that you do have though is, if I recall, this acreage is kind of up on a
like a
promontory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna see the store, no question about it.
So Linda, out of curiosity, is this the last piece is this the last lot in this area, in this development, or is there one more?
No, this is it.
This is it.
This is the last one?
This is it. This is the last piece. Everything else has been developed or sold off.
Okay.
Our client's been trying to market this for years.
No, I get it.
And supervisor knows we've had some discussions about, we've had offers for additional residential on this lot, but it was identified as a commercial lot.
So what's the zoning change that's required?
So only limited retail is permitted in the planned hamlet zone right now.
Limited
So,
retail.
yeah, specialty shops and only up to 5,000 square feet. You know, this goes back 25, 30 years. And I think what was envisioned was different.
How
Throughout.
big's the memory center?
Excuse me?
How big's the memory center?
Artists?
Yeah.
Well, it's 73 beds or
Yeah.
something like
Okay,
that, but
okay, I'm just curious, so.
So, you know, as you know, and the planning board certainly knows throughout the process, since we did the original master plan, you know, things have changed. We switched things up a little bit. I think what's come out up there looks pretty nice. I think it's worked out well.
I think it looks great.
yep.
And this is the last piece that our client, you know, has been trying for years to find something that fit and worked there under the current zoning. And there's no interest in small retail, especially with the retail in the shopping center and now some across the street. There's just, you know, the demand for retail is so limited.
So here's what I'd be looking at. I mean, number one, if you could tell us the location that's set up, the nearest to us, most like what you're gonna build there. You're saying the one in Wappingers may not be
Yeah, one
exactly set up.
vicinity.
So if you have one
Someone in
that's
Patterson also?
that's close to that, I do think, you know, obviously I'm always interested in public comment when things like this come up. But if you're gonna put it on the site, the place you're looking to put it makes the most sense, because it almost looks like just increasing the shopping center that's there already.
Adjacent to the
You know, you're just going,
shopping center is the best way.
you're going across a road and it's changing the zone to, you know, local
Planned
retail
hamlet.
versus commercial.
But I don't want it to look like a shopping center there, you know?
No, well, and we've had some discussions, even between our clients and Matt, and, you know, he's talked about the screening and what they would do.
Yep.
And, obviously, that's important. It's gonna be important to Avalon, it's gonna be important to the Muse.
Yes.
But I think everybody would like to see this last piece get developed. And I
Have you
think-
socialized this with the planning board yet, or?
Yeah, they met.
Matt appeared at the planning board last month.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, we got some comments on it.
Good.
Yeah.
Yep, there was actually some fairly good feedback from the board, most of it regarding screening and things like that, but it was,
Well, we, as Linda will attest to, we have a vigorous review process in our town. You'll be visiting, if we move forward with a formal application, architectural review, open space committee, so you'll get a lot of feedback. Roland, could you just touch on what type of, is this going to be special use permit? I know we're going to have a public hearing on it.
No, I think
You could
you
just
probably
the mic.
have to amend the,
Slide the mic.
sorry. You probably have to amend the concept plan for the planned
So you-
hamlet.
there- Yeah, you need, well, first we would need a zoning amendment, so that would obviously be from your board, because we'd have to amend.
So we would be the
the
lead
zoning.
agency on something like that, yeah.
So, it's interesting because it's part of the Planned Hamlet and the Planned Hamlet Master Plan, which the planning board had been the lead agency on. And so, there's gonna be a lot of approvals needed from the planning board. The
Mhm.
master plan is gonna have to be amended again, which we've done pretty much with every application. We've made little tweaks to the original,
To the planned hamlet.
to the Planned Hamlet
What about
master
the
plan.
comprehensive plan?
I'm not sure that your comp plan would need to be amended for this. We could take a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think the use,
it's a
it's
pretty
still a
minor
commercial
amendment for this
use.
zoning.
It's not retail, it's,
Yeah, but it was limited to 5,000 square feet, and now you'd be
Oh,
taking it up to 40,000 square feet.
it's limited by that. Okay.
Just-
we could survive with 20,000 square feet, because the greenhouse is not an enclosed structure. It is open on three sides. And then there's the outside display areas. I don't know if, that may need another permit or not, I'm not sure, but,
And on SECR, the planning board did, we've been through SECR on this project several times, because they did a full EIS as part of the original Planned Hamlet master plan approval. And then with each subsequent site plan, they've had to compare the impacts of the specific site plan with what was reviewed in the original
So
SECR process.
so you have a base
Oh,
that's been
yeah,
on
we
that
have
for
a big
years.
base. We've
And
been.
so this is just, what would this add and maybe change
Correct.
a little bit based on the.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we've been through that with the planning board a number of times. They're certainly, although there are some newer members, but they're certainly familiar with the project and the
Will
site.
Tractor Supply own the facility?
No.
How does that work?
we will. We're the developer, landowner, we build the building, all at our expense, and Tractor Supply will in return give me a long-term lease, and they will.
Oh, really?
Yep, they will occupy it and take care of it.
And that's their business model, and that's what you're
They,
doing?
they have about 2,000 stores across the U.S. They open up about 80, 90 stores a year. For them to go do what I do.
Closer to the microphone, I'm sorry.
Yes. For them to do what I do,
It's not the bailiwick, I
it would
get
be
it.
a lot. So,
What type of lease do they give you, how long?
it ranges between 15 and 20 years. Yep.
15 and 20?
15 and 20 years, yeah.
Right, did I hear that you are willing to kind of compress the square footage?
No.
No?
No, yeah.
They always confuse clinching with me anyway, what?
Is what you're saying the other stuff is technically not like interior space, it's exterior space.
Yes, yeah. So they're not going to come to town, unfortunately, unless they have a 20,000 square foot retail box
Right.
with their 20,000 square foot outside area where I can also put the greenhouse and other things. So that's
Okay.
that's where I'm restricted. I need to. I don't have a lot of flexibility in that layout of their area. I can put the outside display on the left or the right, okay, but it's
Right,
got to
I
be
hear
next
you.
to the building, and I have to give them what the sizing that they need.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I can dress up the building. I can put some parapet walls up there. I can screen the HVAC units. I can screen the property from the neighbors. I'm very flexible in that area.
Okay.
But-
So I'd like I said, I'd like to go, I'm gonna go visit one of them, so if you can tell me the nearest one.
Yep.
Do a road trip.
Patterson, I think.
And then if you can, I'm sure you have some of these already, but if you could sort of, based on the property, kind of lay out your first run of how you would lay out the store, so we could see where the box would be, where the outdoor
Yeah.
would be, just so we
Yeah.
have an idea as to
Yeah.
sort of what we're looking at. That'd
Well,
be-
I think that, what I was looking for tonight was just a general consensus, which would then enable me to go negotiate with the seller, get it under contract, and put together a more formal application with
Okay.
have my engineering company put together an actual concept plan for you to look at with some, precise dimensions that you can consider.
So they may or may not agree with this, though.
We don't know.
We don't know.
In
Well-
terms of the products and services that you have there, presumably physical product comes in on that one truckload a week, physical product goes out when your customers buy them. What about services?
There are no services. They don't repair machinery. They don't repair chainsaws. They don't repair anything. They
Any
also don't.
masonry work, pavers, things like that
No.
coming through?
No, they don't sell building products. They don't sell tractors. That comes up a lot too. They do on occasion. I know. Supply being the key word. In the summertime, they may sell a couple of lawnmowers. Those are kept on the property without fuel, without oil. Customers have to.
Smaller hand tools and stuff like that from what I've
And then they do sell chainsaws and small hand tools within inside of the store. But yeah.
Yeah, I think your suggestion to go visit the one at Patterson is a good one.
Yeah,
We'll-
Patterson would
we'll
be the
do that.
closest one. Newtown would be the nicest one.
Oh, is that?
Okay.
And Newtown, you said, is near residential.
Yes, Newtown has residences on 3 sides. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Newtown would be the one.
Yeah.
It's not that far.
I mean, you're asking sort of what we think. I could speak for myself. Right now, I want to go look at it, and it's kind of funny. I don't know if it's the cart before the horse. I sort of would like sort of a conceptual,
Yeah.
how it would lay on the land before I can tell you, yeah, I'm good or I'm not. I mean, right now, my thoughts, like I said, the piece of property that you're talking about in that particular planned hamlet seems to make the most sense because of its location. If you were coming and saying, we're gonna put it in the middle of it, I'd say, yeah, no, that doesn't really make sense to me.
Right.
But, it's hard for me to, I was on the planning board, it's hard for me to say, yeah, that's a go forward and prosper when I don't have an actual picture of what it would look like on the piece of property.
Right.
You were on in the early days of the plan.
I was on before there was anything there,
I remember.
yes.
Yeah. So it sounds to me then, if I can put together a product that you like to see, then that's a good start.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's what I've been before boards and commissions where they say, no way. So that's
Right,
that's
so
what
some
I'm
of the,
looking
just some of the feedback, I really didn't know a lot about Tractor Supply, but have since learned a bunch about it, and people apparently really like Tractor Supplies. And so I think, once again, speaking as an individual on the board, I would encourage you to, press forward. Let's see, situate your building on the site. I think I myself will go out and revisit the site, because I can remember it slopes kind of up.
for. Right.
And maybe you can tuck that, the building into the slope in the back. I don't know, but
That's actually what I was thinking about doing. Yeah, lowering the plateau a little bit.
yeah, keeping the profiles low.
One thing to note that Tractor Supply, they do bring in around 15 new jobs, full-time and part-time. They do offer benefits. They're a great employer. Many employees can progress to be regional level. They can a lot of them move down to Nashville, where the corporate headquarters are. So they do promote within. They're a really good company. They are publicly traded. They do encourage farmers markets and things like that, even on their property if they're permitted, things like that. So they do have a strong local influence.
Right.
So
I'd like to see, I think I agree with him, I'd like to see how does this fit in so I can visualize it.
Yeah.
And then think about, this wouldn't be your responsibility, but for ours. Okay, if that happens, what are the results intended and unintended that come from that? What if we you always open the door to something, so
Right.
I'd like to think about that too.
Yeah.
But I know one person I talked to today said that they did like the Tractor Supply, and he doesn't own a tractor.
That was kind of the reaction of the
Yeah.
planning board.
Yep.
Well, he's stressing supply.
Supply.
We get that now. Good.
Yeah, they do have about 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of pet food,
That was one thing he said to me
dog
today.
kennels,
Yeah.
toys, chew toys. They do sell large breed animal feed, like for horses. There's a lot of equestrian centers around here. They do sell, repair parts that you can buy to repair your own equipment if you wanted to, or a lot of times shops will use their hydraulic hoses and things like that and for their own supply. And then of course, there's several aisles of hardware, and there's even kids' toys and
Really?
Carhartt clothing. Yep.
I gotta go look at one of these.
Yeah.
All right, so just talk about the next steps. So you're going to leave here with the idea that at least this board, which would be the lead agency, right? It's going to be a zoning change. We'd like to see some renderings of how
Yeah.
you would cite it, show that the Shop and Stop and possibly the Avalon and the Muse, which is on your footstep, right across from you. And to Councilman Sirico's comment about when he was talking about Bobo's, there's a view shed there that, is very pleasant from that aspect. So these are, I'm just giving you a heads up, type of things that the town committees and boards will be, asking you to look at. So if you can get a head start on that's all good.
Yeah.
I just have to say, we're very interested to hear what public comment says as well.
Yeah, of
We always
course.
are.
Always.
Well, yes, ultimately, this goes to a public hearing, and
Of course.
that'll be,
I think there'll be several public
we hear?
hearings between the zone amendment and planning and zoning.
For your board as well as the planning board.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it would be, wouldn't it?
And, we'll do our best to accommodate. That's what we
Okay,
do.
thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caitlin, thank you, good to see you.
Linda, the submittal was great, thank you. The information you gave, thank you, it was great.
Okay, next up, number 5, zoning board request, R40 zoning district proposed code change. So, I see Bart, I see Tom. Tom's in the way back.
And Melissa.
Oh, and Melissa, yes, okay. So if, I've read over the material, if someone would like to just come up and just present.
This is the lot coverage one?
Yeah, this has to do with lot coverage.
Yeah, from 6% to what, 23%?
No, they're not recommending, well, I'll let them.
Yeah, let them go. Right. All right, I got it.
Good evening, Bart Lansky.
Good to see you, Bart.
Hello,
Thank you.
Bart.
Good evening. So we had a recent application which triggered some conversation, and the result of that conversation was a memo to this board. We have a zoning code with a schedule which, if you look at the maximum percentage of lot to be occupied, we have 2 definitions in the code. We have lot coverage or site coverage and building coverage. This provides in a 1-acre zone, in our R40 zone, that you, with a principal building, can have 6% coverage, which is about 2,400 square feet. So if you look at our R40 neighborhoods, West Somers Park, and a number of the other areas, you can have about 2,400 square feet of area occupied. And if you read our definition under site coverage, that includes driveways which are pervious. Many towns make a distinction between pervious and impervious, and they have a much greater number for impervious. We have 6%. So we're saying in a lot of these neighborhoods, most of our standard houses, your standard colonial, will be non-conforming. If you look at, on our 10 neighborhood, we have 18%. So you have 1,800 square feet for your house, your deck, your walkways, your driveway. So if you do that strict interpretation, which I believe our building department and our board's been doing, we're making a non-conforming situation, and we're having people who may want a pool, who may want a deck, or just have a regular garage. The size of the zoning variances would set a dangerous precedent. And so we're asking the board to look at the zoning schedule and look at some of the every neighboring town has a much more permissive schedule. So we are unique if you follow this to the definition that we've been following.
Can I ask a question?
Well, I know you stopped short of giving us a recommendation.
Well, it's your job to look at any legislative changes. We can certainly look at an
The
applicant.
zoning board of appeals, we're going to look to you for, what is in the best interest of the town. We don't want to have such a high number that, it changes the look of an R40 zone.
Well,
So Bart, is it 6% for the buildings, 6% for the surfaces?
it's 6%, and everything is included in that 6%
'Cause
in
a
accordance
A
with
deck, a
interpretation.
pool, a driveway,
A gravel
a
driveway.
shed.
A shed,
So that
everything.
would be like 50 by 50 roughly.
So-
That's 2,500 square feet of footprint.
Take an average colonial, right? We have in our neighborhoods, like West Somers Park, it's 12 or 1,300 square feet for its footprint. It's got a 2-car garage, another 500 square feet. So you're at 1,800 square feet. You put a deck, 400 square feet. You're at
Yeah.
23. Thank you. And then you got to do a driveway, and you have a setback, and the setback's 50 feet or something like that. You need 2 cars right there. You're going to add another 600 square feet. You're now at a 30 or 40% zoning variance, which is too much, and that's our average home in that neighborhood. And you can look at it in R10. Like you look at Lincolndale, Shannon Rock. Look at
Oh, so they're non-conforming,
They're-
is what you're saying.
but I don't think that's what our comprehensive plan and what's best for our residents, to have a lot of these homes all be non-conforming.
Right.
Meaning, you buy a house, it's a big ask to come in and put a pool in.
Well, so these that are non-conforming, were they built before these regulations went in?
I look at the code.
Someone just didn't pay attention, or it's the first I've sort of heard of this.
I've only been on the board for a little while. The code had a change in 2003.
Wasn't me.
I mean, these houses were all built back in the late 60s.
So something's
So they
curious.
preceded it.
I mean, but if you look at all of our neighboring towns, and I pulled the schedule for Bedford.
Yeah?
Yeah, you have all of them there.
Yeah,
It's in the memo to us.
yeah, I added some of them there. But on a 1 acre, you have 20%. So you now have 8,000 square feet, and we have 2,400 square feet, as an example. That's a big delta. On a smaller lot, they have 40%, and we have 18%.
How does that work with usable space? You might have a lot that's on a steep slope, but it's an acre, right? So you're operating on a half an acre. Now it has a different, it's still 6% or 8% or whatever.
The math doesn't get fuzzy. It's just 6%.
It's just 6%.
But there is a side to this. Some towns, their identity is that sort of buildup. And other towns, this one, that open space, as Rick says, you don't want to change sort of the nature of it. Is that the? I'm just wondering. I mean, you can't answer this question, but was that the purpose of when this was written, to keep that sort of open look?
I
of
don't
some?
think so. I think the ones that he's referencing that I'm looking at here are similar, Bedford, North Salem, Southeast, Lewisboro. They all have higher.
Lewisboro for sure.
They all have higher numbers than us.
I think you could look at our code as having some ambiguity and needing some clarity.
Sure.
And that might explain it. Or there's no reason necessarily to delve into the past and just say, here we have something which has come before us, and what's the best thing for our residents?
Yeah.
All right, well, another concern here is that what percentage of homes now are non-compliant?
Depends on how, if you take this strict interpretation, they're not necessarily non-compliant because they have a CO. They're subject to their planning board plat, so they're approved.
But if it were to be built today, could you do it?
They couldn't do it. But the issue is, if we had an applicant, he just wanted to change his garage and deck a little bit, and it became this monstrous variance. And that becomes, as lifestyles and habits change, as people work from home, as their kids stay home because of the cost of living, we're going to be unique in this area that we can't accommodate that.
So, Bart, when I think of this, I mean, we're showing a comparison of different percentages and footprints by town, but maybe the solution for us, it's not 6%, but if we look around ourselves and say, what's reasonable, it may be 8 or 10%. because this is what we, pretty much have.
It's
Maybe
probably
kind
a
of
sub-
spot it somewhere like that.
It's probably a subject that you want your planner to review
Oh,
and
definitely.
give
Oh,
you some
yeah.
guidance
Yes.
on.
Of course, yeah.
Of course.
You-
I'm just some way I'm thinking through it.
But many towns look much more towards pervious and impervious. And obviously, stormwater, if you look at our lakes, is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And you can add that into your chart, you can add that into the way you do business, and give people, if they have a gravel driveway, make that not count. That's within our definition, and it's not within many of the other definitions. So that's another approach.
I think what Roland said, it makes sense, is I think we need to
Yeah, let's
give it
see.
out
go
to
to
our
the planner.
planner. You know, none of us here know what's, is 10%, is 12%, is 15%. You know,
Right.
We'll ultimately say yes or no, but we'll get it to our expert in the planning department who will review it and basically say, yeah, you're right, we should probably tweak it up a little bit.
Right, and obviously counsel with you
Yeah.
and the
Well,
zoning
the
board of
zoning-
appeals.
The zoning board, I didn't know if Melissa or Tom had something more they wanted to add into the equation.
Hi, all. I think,
Hey, Tom.
I think. I have
Identify
some ideas.
yourself.
Tom Soma, Somers Building Inspector. Good
Oh,
evening.
that's right.
How are you?
How are you, Tom?
I'm good.
You're Anthony
I think at a minimum, the code needs some clarification, some new definitions worked into existing language. As written, I believe that there's a possibility that could be interpreted different by, depending on who's reviewing it. I think it might be a good start to have the zoning board come up with a proposed
That's, I was gonna suggest you go with the
percentage
zoning
and then
board.
send that to
Yeah.
the Director of Planning
Yeah, I think what changes you
and
think
engineering.
might make sense,
Mhm.
and then submit that versus have him look at it and come back with things that you might say, well, that doesn't really make sense to us. If you have some things in mind,
Right.
add that, we'll get it to the planner, the planner can review it and agree, disagree, tweak, do whatever needs to be done.
Right, and I like the logic of, if it is based on pervious versus impervious, you get credit or you can subtract pervious.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah, I would
sense.
agree.
For
That's so
instance-
much better. For
I mean, even a
water.
deck,
Yeah, decks
rain
are-
comes
decks-
through a deck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that should be omitted.
Yeah, I definitely think that should be written into it,
Yeah.
whatever
But
we
in the
do.
example that you gave, you listed what the building, and then you listed the impervious surfaces, 6 and 6. So is that like 12% combined
On the memo that we have.
on the memo that we have?
The memo we have, for instance,
The-
is Town of Somers, 6 buildings, 6
6
impervious.
impervious.
Town of Bedford, 10 building, 20 impervious.
I believe that's referring to just the principal structure.
So it's just 6% in general.
6% in general. And then our schedule also has the percentage allowed for accessory buildings. In that R40, it would be an additional 3%.
I'm looking at the summary schedule that we,
The comparison.
It's 6% total.
it's
So
6%.
What I meant to represent in that
Okay.
chart was, it's 6%, and that includes impervious.
Got it,
Okay.
okay,
All right.
good,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
The totals with the comparison to our neighbors, is that inclusive, principal and accessory, all structures on the property?
No, so our code is unique from what I'm looking at. When you just look at the charts, and when I put that chart together, it was a quick review, and I just looked at the neighboring, obviously on E-code, everyone's summary chart. And we have 6% in our chart, and then 3% if you have an accessory building, which means if you take your garage and you offset it from your house,
Right, it does not connect it.
which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Can you speak into the mic so that people at home can?
Sorry.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
You get
To the mic.
You have to go.
You get an additional 3%.
So, for instance, here, it says North Salem, building 20%, impervious 40%. So you're saying 20% with the building, if you have an impervious surface, it can be 40% covered?
Yeah, so 20% with the building, and then all the additional things gives you that 40%. Whereas in Somers,
Six
that
is-
whole thing is 6% or 9% if you have an accessory structure. So it's 9% versus 40%, assuming your garage is offset.
Okay,
So I would go with what we were saying, is I would put your plans, your ideas together, and let's get it up to
To
the
the
planner.
planner.
And have him review it.
And this has created a problem for Tommy and for the zoning board because you end up, I'm assuming now, you're having to, I don't know, or issue citations or whatever, or you have to make a ruling on a zoning variance where the rules are binding you in what appears to you to not be common sense. Am I correct?
Just requires bigger variances.
Yes,
It-
and the variance.
Why don't you come up and, thanks.
State your name also, please.
I'm Melissa DiPolito. What we're finding with this last application is the variance ask with the code set at the 6%. I'm sorry. The variance ask with the code set at 6% for the principal structure made the variance so large that we, although granting a garage wasn't unusual, because of the size,
Okay, I got
we
it.
didn't want to start this slippery slope where we then have other homeowners come before us looking for custom relief, but the size we're then
Right.
always granting 200, 300% variances.
Now,
So when this garage is built, we go up and look at it after the fact, we're gonna say, hey, this looks like a regular house with a regular garage on a regular piece of property, but we're making them go through a couple of hoops because of our code.
Yes.
Okay.
now, how many of these would you say, Bart, or, that you've had?
This was really the first that really came before us where we
Really hit you.
noticed, because they were before us once before and they were placing the garage in a different location on their property. That location was a little bit closer to the street, so they were actually removing driveway and the surface changed. Now, that didn't look so well with the way it fit into their neighborhood, so they were actually acting proactively to better the neighborhood by moving the garage to the other side. That elongated their driveway, and that's when we started realizing they were way above.
Right. So I was just going to say, I'd kind of like to sum up the issue. I like the fact that the Zoning Board of Appeals, with our building inspector, forward-thinking here. Yeah, you could give a huge variance on this one, but is that really the way to deal with this? And I think bringing it to our attention and having our planning director, sit down with you, looking at these percentages, from a town board perspective, we don't want to do any zoning changes that are going to be,
Onerous.
change the look of neighborhoods. And so once again, we're not planners and we're not versed on the zoning code like you folks are. So, I think we're going to take your memo under advisement. We'll give it over to Dave Smith, and he'll circle back with you. And, thanks for bringing the issue to our...
We appreciate that.
You can get the changes together and work with Dave. Good.
And we can do a proposal?
Yeah,
Yeah, good, that's.
and
what we like.
then we'll hear from other people.
And we'll
So,
have a public
Roland,
hearing.
Are our regulations on this seem to be out of step with most other towns that are similar to
Well,
us?
North Salem is very restrictive, and if it's turning out that we're more restrictive than North Salem, I would say that may be problematic.
All right, there you go.
That's okay. We're an individual town. We don't do what other towns do.
But just as a matter of process, right, you have this application comes before you because Tom's department looked at an existing homeowner with a change. But all the new building that's going on, when we approve, what's going on at that site for, 10 houses on 1 acre, how does, essentially you approve it, whether it conforms or not, it's okay, right?
The planning board the planning board has the power to adjust those percentages
And they do,
in a subdivision, and they do.
and they do.
And they commonly do.
So,
And it's in excess of what our schedule is at the time.
So, I think it's very important to understand that there's discretion here, and, that discretion is implemented judiciously by the planning board
For new construction.
for new construction.
Right.
You know, for existing construction, you know, now, does this affect new construction, this zoning change, if we were to make this change?
Sure.
It would, right?
It would, but the planning board would still have the power to
Discretion.
modify
It's not
this.
gonna hurt them.
Right.
Right, this is like,
Right.
to me, it's house cleaning.
Yes.
You know, we have to, brought it to our attention, let's dig in and we'll have the planner look at it.
If nothing's done, the zoning board's gonna be very busy
Yeah,
with
no, I think that-
applications that are denied based on,
I-
you know.
Yeah, we don't want to
I appreciate
overburden
it.
our volunteers, you
I
know.
appreciate
We
you bringing it to
appreciate
our attention.
Yeah,
everything
we
you do.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, I think we have a plan forward.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah?
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
very
for
much.
bringing it up.
Thanks for serving on the board.
Yep. Good night.
That's good.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is Metro North Railroad parking on 116. And this issue came up when Metro North Railroad asked the town board to pass a resolution to restrict parking on, not the bridge, because you can't park on the bridge, but the entrance onto the bridge. And I understand, Roland, they sent the same request to North Salem to restrict. Now, someone brought a question to me. The 116 is a state road. Why are they looking to the town to, but my understanding is, this is not on the road, these are on the shoulder where
It's the
people
property
park.
on the side.
Well, no, they will enact, the state will enact the restriction, and they'll sign it, they'll post the signs, and they will enforce it. But they only do that in instances where the individual towns consent to it. So
Okay.
they're looking for your consent, and then they will act.
Okay.
And what is their interest in this after all these years? Well, why?
Well,
the-
I think
the
it's,
park-
I think it's the new parking lot at St. Joseph's.
Well, that's, yeah, that's
They
up
want it-
there. 116's right here.
Well, the same principle, though, they want people off the street, they want them in the parking lots.
Well, yeah, Metro North wants to make more money.
Okay, so my read on this is, and I said the same thing, Rich. Years ago, they came to us and said, you know, we purchased the the St. Joseph property. We're going to put 400 parking spaces there, and it's going to restrict parking on 100, which in fact is a very dangerous
That
situation.
is, no doubt.
So getting those cars into that parking lot that serves, this parking lot serves Croton Falls. Now they're asking us to pass a resolution about parking on 116. First of all, I don't think anybody that is going to the Purdy's train station is gonna take their car, go up to Purdy's and use the Purdy's station, number one. Number two, yeah, this is free
You mean the
parking.
Croton Falls station?
Croton Falls, yes.
Yeah.
Croton Falls Station.
They're not gonna go
I get
north
in
to
North
park.
Salem where the parking, because I was over there looking at this issue, could be a little dangerous on the North Salem side. But on the Somer side, we have wide shoulders on both sides of 116. And for those individuals who are lucky enough to get parking spaces in the morning, you know, I don't see that we should consent to no parking there. That's one man's opinion.
I agree with you.
Well, right now, there's lots of parking there. But as one resident at 116 said to me last night, they're in regular time, so to speak. It's hard to get a space there. And he's saying, so now where am I going to park? That was his point of view, too. Well, why are you taking that away from me? Now, didn't they talk about making a lot into the side of the hill over there at 116 at one point?
That's not part of this.
And they had asked us if we wanted to jump onto that proposal. We had asked them to put a sidewalk along. They had rejected that along 116 several years ago, remember
Yeah,
that?
they were going to add a second floor.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean a second, right, they were going to add a second floor of that. Is that still, we don't know
I have
anything
no
about
idea.
that.
I mean, from my perspective, this doesn't seem to be a safety issue. It's free parking. In the Purdy situation, it may even be overflow parking because that gets filled up, so they back up maybe and they park on that, on that road there. And I don't feel like we ought to adjust that.
Yeah, I don't see.
Parking on 100 up there
No,
when it's dark.
116 is another.
That's a problem.
I mean, up on 100 is another
100,
problem.
that is a problem that should be corrected. And St. Joseph's hopefully will do that. On 116.
it is being corrected.
Having lived over there, I don't know. Now, if they created more parking, I'm just worried that there's no parking. Now, people are going to park on the street and get a ticket? Because there's times when you couldn't park in their parking lot. They've expanded it several times. Well, then you go down to Katona. Well, Katona's got all sorts of spaces now, too, but they weren't in the past. And that would be filled up. So unless they increase the number of spaces as time goes on, I would be hesitant about eliminating that right now.
So you're against the resolution?
Yeah.
Yep. We're all saying the same thing.
Yeah. We're all saying the same thing in different ways.
Okay. Well, if it's the.
I don't understand it.
But not with respect to Route 100, that you want to support?
Oh, that's a done deal.
Oh, that already is
Oh,
done.
yeah, that's, yeah,
Yeah,
that,
they're only asking for the 116.
Okay.
so it's, and it's kind of, I don't agree with their logic.
Not right now.
And once again, North Salem's another municipality, they can do what they'd like, but, for the, like I said, the lucky few that can get parking spaces, legal parking spaces
For free.
on 116 on the north and south side, off the shoulders, I say let's not mess with that. And those who want to go up to Croton Falls and pay for a parking space or go down to Golden's Bridge. I mean, the town, Patty and I had this conversation today. The town has control over about 80 spaces there that we can sell to people. And, what we sold maybe 25 of the 80?
Is that Katona you're talking about? Or
No, Golden's Bridge.
at Golden's Bridge?
17.
But they're monthly,
So then what
right?
we do is we turn the rest over to Bedford for people who want to park down there.
Fees for people who want to buy. Ours is annual.
So those,
Because they're non-residential.
yeah, if people on 116, they're not lucky enough to get a space in the morning, they could always have the option of coming into the townhouse, purchasing a parking permit for the Golden's Bridge train station.
It's Katona.
Katona.
Katona, I'm sorry.
Katona.
Why am I
Don't
saying
spread
Golden's
that
Bridge?
rumor.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Why am I saying, yeah.
Bridge has a lot of space.
So, but on this issue, unless I hear any objection, I will.
Well, if Tom's, I don't know, maybe you're right. If they want to make more money by putting people in spaces,
Yeah.
maybe that is the motivation. Well, if you want to do that and you want us to inconvenience citizens, well, I'd say, what are you going to do for us? Or,
I think that's exactly why they want to do it.
so
But,
I don't see.
I don't see.
I see
support
people
that.
losing. I don't see us gaining.
Right, okay. All right, so I think I have a direction on this item. I will get back to Mr. Maddox and tell him the opinion of the board. Okay, we can now go back to telecommunications. Tony, do you have anything to add?
Well, just a quick update. I think, as we were chatting with George, on the heels of Eastside East, one of the objectives of this committee was to, essentially get to really oppose and challenge Altice for their lack of service and resilience and preparedness. And as a result of that, and to the credit of everybody participated, they were fined $72 million. And we're trying to take this to the next step to get them before us and to explain to us how are they going to improve the situation. So that's one of the things that are being worked on. Out of this, we also took a look at our cellular service in the area, and we're partnering with the northern communities and the county, and we're evaluating, the present network as it is, understanding population and soft spots in the network, and we all know where they are, right? When we're driving, we're dropping here and there. On September 9th, at the board meeting, the consulting firm that's been doing this is going to present to the board, their first run of their gap analysis, And that's going to be followed with a survey, which is going to have some solutions, and we want to get public opinion as to what people might think of those solutions. So that's, that's on the, that's on the agenda as well. And then we talked about, some of the town-wide emergency frequency discussions that we're having. The town has these type of things in place, but we're looking for something that might be more comprehensive and inclusive. And we know that the county is doing a county-wide initiative, and we're trying to get a seat at the table there, which we do have, right? But
Right.
we want to understand their initiative and see how.
Well,
that-
George invited you to set up that call with them. That's
Yes.
great, great entree.
Thank you. And that's, I think, that's pretty much, where we're at.
Well, I would like to commend you for heading up and the telecommunication task force with Councilman Faulkner. This was really a key committee to put together to address these issues. I mean, if it hadn't been for the telecommunications consortium, you pulled, even other towns were invited to participate. You've been Zooming meetings over the past year. And the fact that, once again, formal complaint to the Public Service Commission resulted in, a fine. And as we did with, Utility Task Force and NYSEG, we want to know what those fines are going to be used for. How are those fines going to benefit, the end result, which is the consumers? So I just want to thank you for your
Well, it goes
time
without
spent.
saying also, Rick, that, your staff, Tammy and Kim, I mean, they were the backbone of this during the process for, 3-5 months, and maybe even till this day. They're taking complaints and calls from disgruntled, clients, customers, our residents that are not getting the response that they should be getting from the providers. And, we've been the bully pulpit and all that, and we're advocating for them, and, we're at least a point where they can actually get an individual on the phone. We all know that experience of trying to call Altice with a service problem and just getting,
nowhere.
nowhere. And so, that's been very helpful, and Tammy and Kim have done an outstanding job.
Okay, well, keep up the good work.
No doubt. But I will also say that Altice makes NYSEG look really good, which we've had our issues there. But they're looking better. But their responses, their public service responsiveness compared to Altice, Cablevision, it's just astounding to me these people can stay in business. They're dinosaurs. They're going to be put out of business soon, and they ought to pay attention to their customer service. Otherwise, as soon as everybody says, man, if I could just cut that cable and get out, I would. And so if I were them, I'd pay attention to that sentiment, try to do better. I just don't think they're trying hard enough.
I said earlier, internet connections,
Yeah.
they're a utility. They really are.
Absolutely.
So there's 2 letters coming out of Rick's office requesting, and the Public Service Commission is going to be on them, requesting this meeting with Altice, and we're also going to do this with Verizon. Because we want to bring them to the table to understand them as an
I think
alternate
I sent
provider.
that letter around already.
Yeah, and we're going to post it on the website.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the update and your work on the telecommunications committee. Okay, next item is number 7, authorize supervisor to sign the DOH 348 form, as well as a letter of authorization and certificate of resolution as they relate to Artis Senior Living Facility located at 51 Clayton Boulevard, and indicate that the town of Somers is the applicant for the water main and fire hydrant in the recently acquired easement per memo dated June 28th from Adam Smith. So this essentially is us taking ownership of the extension of the water main. So I'll make that a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So moved. Item 8, authorize supervisors to execute the proposal to replace the roof of the Wright Reese Homestead Summer Kitchen from artisan Jeffrey Nestessa owner of JNS Roofing, in the amount of $6,000 per memo dated June 14th from the Historic Properties Board.
Didn't we see this number at another time? And wasn't it much higher? We all went, what?
No,
this
that
is just
was
a
not.
section.
That was,
What was
this is
it?
just over the kitchen.
Yeah,
Was
this,
that the whole thing?
I think it was, that was a bigger project. Yeah, that was the one where we were just looking at the usage or something. The 6,000 is just for the kitchen roof.
yeah, that might have been for the Wright Reese building itself. This is just the summer kitchen.
No, I don't think it was the right reason. I think you're thinking, wasn't it Van Tassel or something like that?
Fantastic.
That was Van
Okay,
Tassel.
yeah,
That was
so
Van Tassel.
we're still
Right,
going out to bid
right,
on
right,
those.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is different.
Okay, so I have a motion on that.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. And then number 9, authorize the supervisor to sign the New York State Department of Transportation Office of Real Estate permit for use of state-owned property issued to this town of Somers for 4 stone gateway signs located along routes 202, 135 in the town of Somers. The renewal contract for the town's insurance with travelers for the period July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, per referral from Robert Kehoe, Director of Finance. And next is the renewal contract for the town's work compensation insurance with PERMA for a period of July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, per referral from Robert Kehoe, Director of Finance. And then the Minicello drainage easement for the property located at 2 Old Croton Falls Road, Somers, New York, per memo dated July 2nd from Steve Wolfel, Principal Engineer Technician. So I'd like to make that a motion 9A, B, C, and D.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Yeah, I'm just making a note here. Aye, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
He was out of breath after midnight.
Yeah, I gotta make my notes here. Trying to make it seamless. Number 10 on the agenda, refer request to purchase 2 parcels of town-owned lots, 5.13-1-21 and lot 5.14-1-1 to the rear of 20 Loudsbury Drive, to the assessor, Highway Department, Open Space Committee, Parks and Recreation, and the Planning and Engineering Department for evaluation. We do that to see if any of these boards have any use.
So let's spell Lounsbury right. Lounsbury, it should be, isn't it, that name of the street over there?
Where's that?
Lounsbury Drive.
Okay, make that correction. Number 11 is to refer request to purchase 3 parcels from the town of Somers, 8 Boxwood Drive, 9 Arcadia Drive, 13 Arcadia Drive, to the assessor, Highway Department, Open Space Committee, Parks Rec, and Planning and Engineering Department for evaluation. So these are, have a question, you have to come up to the mic. So these are 2 requests that will be sent out to these aforementioned boards and committees. Yes, sir.
John McCormick at 10 Acacia Drive, on that strip that they're requesting. Is it still the law that if anybody purchases that town property, that no
Improvements.
trees or anything are being taken down or abused?
So, yeah, I was just about to mention on both these properties, if it is found that the town doesn't have use for these, meaning they don't need it for an easement for X, Y, or Z, they do come with deed restrictions.
Okay.
Where no major improvements can take place. I don't know that entails you can't take down trees. That you can, I would suggest you contact our engineering department, Steve Wolfel,
Okay.
and ask him that specific question about trees. But I know they do come with deed restrictions where you cannot, you can't put houses on them.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so we will, Patty- yes, sir. Patty, do we need a motion to refer them, or just,
You don't have to, you can.
okay. Yes, sir.
Good evening. Yes, Rick Foss from 8 Acacia Drive,
Yep.
The other
neighbors. So right across the street, my friend Tommy, who is just also my neighbor, the building department, he said that nothing can be built. Is that correct?
Correct.
I just want to make sure. And then I had one other question.
And frankly, that might make all the difference in the world
Right.
to the person.
I mean, because that's the main reason I bought the piece of property, is that it was owned by the town, and they said they can never build on it. And bought the house 8 years ago, and that's the main reason I bought the house, was the property across the street and the property behind me, that's a wetland. So I just want to make sure, because was very important of purchasing that home, so,
Yeah.
okay, very good, thank you.
Evening. My name is Winky Chow. I'm at 9 Acacia. Well, technically 7, but we won't go into those details. I had the same exact thought that Rick had before. It was like, we bought this house wanting privacy. And my biggest worry and concern is that the idea that you guys can change this law about building on there freaks me out. We just had a house that's get put up about 500 feet away. And for about 18 months, it was hell on earth, listening to trucks come by all the time, jackhammering, pouring concrete. And it's a beautiful house. I'm happy that they're there. But that's 500 feet away. We're talking about a plot of land that is probably 75 feet from my house. I'd probably go insane and want to leave if that's the case, if that's what we're doing.
Okay, so just to be clear, so there's a request
Yes.
from someone to purchase from the town.
Yes.
The parcel, but it comes with a deed restriction.
Understood. I'm saying, can that deed restriction be reversed?
Yes, by
petition?
obviously by a future board.
Yeah, so
I mean,
this board
we don't
has
have
no
any
intention of
intention of
changing the deed restriction. But by petition, as the town attorney said.
We'd have to change the town code, not
No,
just
no, it's not part of the
each
code.
particular
It's not-
sale.
The deed is
Because it's a deed, it's in a deed, it's not in the code.
So any deed a town board could, is that what you're saying? Or any of these
Sure.
that happen comes up?
A future
it's
town,
not just,
a future town board could take a specific deed and rescind the restriction in the deed, and then file a new deed.
Now, let me ask you a
Any-
question, though.
okay.
If
It
we
would require
sell
the
it-
consent of the owner plus the town board, as is any agreement
that
you
was my
make
question.
can be rescinded
Yeah,
or amended
okay.
by a future board.
I don't know
thought
why
it
a
was a
town
code.
board would want to do that.
It's like a zoning arrangement.
Because hearing that they can reverse it, the thought to me is, then what is the intention of buying these 2-3 plots of land if they can't build anything with it? You can't do anything with it,
Look, and I can't speak for who these people, but once they learn there's a deed restriction and that they cannot build a house on it,
All right.
that could be the answer right there.
We're
They're not
hoping,
interested.
But we
But no, I understand
We're
your
worried.
concern.
Yeah.
I totally get
Some
it.
people I know come to us to buy it because they want to do nothing, and they want to buy it so nobody else could do anything on it. That might be a possibility too. They just want to expand their private property.
You wouldn't.
No, right,
You wouldn't.
right. I'm
But-
just saying,
but-
some who have come before us, I know have said the reason for it was that.
I mean, what we're saying is
I know that you
that
could
this
undo
board
it.
can do what we can do today.
okay.
In 10 years, you could have a totally different makeup on the board. I, for the life of me, couldn't think of why they would change a deed restriction, especially if neighbors came out and said, hey, wait a minute. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. But we can't guarantee everything
Yeah.
forever. We can only do what we can do when we're on the board.
So this board, having worked with them for 8 years.
I didn't know that.
Have always made decisions in the best interest of you folks. You're our residents, we're gonna protect you and what's in the best interest. And in the best interest is not to remove a deed restriction. It's there for a reason. This is a procedure we go through. The planning board might say, hey, we're gonna need this for future easement. The Open Space Committee, I'm sure, is going to say they want it to remain open space, but we go through this procedure. But even these procedures, the only thing they're going to recommend is the town doesn't have an interest for now or future, and we don't have a problem with it being sold.
And you also have to look at the history of how you came into the ownership, because it could be restricted by law.
Right.
It could, for instance, have been a recreation parcel that no one's ever developed for recreation, but it remains a recreation parcel, and you cannot liquidate it without a special act of the state legislature.
Okay, and that goes for any board, any town future board.
That's a state law, yeah, that you can't vary. So if we were to find that someone donated that parcel as a recreation parcel, one of these lots, then you could not even consider selling it.
So that's interesting. So they might have donated it. The people who originally built over there may have donated it in lieu of rec fees or something like that.
In lieu of a rec fee, the first obligation under that statute is to give a parcel of property for recreation.
That's a great. That's
The
that
fee,
one.
the fee in lieu of is because most towns have come to the conclusion today that they don't want all these little pieces of land.
Right.
They'd rather have the money to build large parks.
Right.
But back
So how
then-
can we check that, Roland, on these parcels?
You have to
The
check,
records.
the assessor will
Yeah,
be checking
Teresa
that,
should
I would
have it.
imagine, as part of her review.
so let's-
Gentlemen, we're going to refer it out.
So can we take this off we'll take this off?
Well, we should take it off. We're going to refer
No,
it
we're
out. That's what
referring it.
doing. We're not voting.
We're
on
not-
it. We're
Okay.
referring it.
Because a block away on Evergreen Street, there's a house. I mean, I've been in the house almost 8 years. I walk my dog past it every day. There's a house that's still half built on this huge piece of property. Cut down all the trees. I mean, it's almost like 2 lots.
So
It's that big.
what we can do is this. We're going to refer it out.
Okay.
It sounds like the assessor can get back to us to tell us if maybe some of these
Right.
lots were given in lieu of rec fees.
Right.
If that happens, then obviously there's a state law. From what I can tell from the town board, or at least right now, we're telling people we're not gonna take away any deed restrictions. If there's deed restrictions on it, they're gonna stay on it.
Okay,
So the owner, the person who's looking to buy it might say, well, like the supervisor says, I'm not interested in it.
Okay.
Well, more likely, you would be selling it with deed restrictions.
that's-
You'd be putting them
We're
on.
putting them on, so I'm sorry.
They don't already exist.
Yeah, we put
most
them on.
likely.
We would sell them with deed restrictions. But again, I don't know why anybody would do it, but in
And that could be undone.
10, 15 years, another board could come in and undo it. But we don't have
All
any
right,
control
so,
over that.
so to keep on your radar would be when these parcels show up on our agenda for a sale. So-
Because I just found out a day ago, and thank you. And thank you, because my
Okay.
heart was racing all day. Because
The agendas
I
are
was telling my wife I'm going to put a for sale sign on
Okay,
the
so the
house.
agendas
Because
is
if they're
been-
going to be building across the street, no, I'm serious. I'd go move north somewhere where I have more property and privacy, and I can barely see my neighbors here, nicest people, same with Don, I can barely see them, but when I do, how you doing? But
Okay, well,
I can't
I
be on
want
top of
you, I
somebody.
want you all to leave here with the understanding is we're working in your best interest,
Thank you. That's,
okay?
that means
So,
everything. Thank you.
and that's why we're referring it out to our experts. They're gonna get back to us and let us know.
Right, see if there's any town use for it or any future possible thing that the town would want it for. But I can't see the town selling something so somebody else could build something for it. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Because like I said-
I didn't even know we
Or
could
would've
do
been
that.
done
Because
long ago.
I still see a house every day that just says Tyvek, Tyvek, Tyvek,
Yeah.
Tyvek, and it's.
Any idea why?
Don't know.
Talk to your neighbor.
Don't know. Yeah.
Who's
I
the
should.
owner?
Ask them.
Right.
I'd like to come out and take a look at it. I wanna
Yeah.
maybe
Oh,
one
it's
of the
beautiful
other
down
guys
there.
will do
I mean, it's a mile off of Level Street. It's away from everybody.
Oh,
Only
I
get
know
about
that. Yeah.
10 other houses that are further. So barely any cars pass by. So across
we-
the streets,
Well,
all
it's nice
woods,
to have
We
it.
meet
right?
the,
Everything's
we meet
woods.
the first and second Thursday of every month. Next month, it's only going to be one meeting, but just go on our website. Monday. or
Our
Tuesday
agendas
before
are
the
on there.
meeting,
Okay.
And when the agenda's up there, you see it, you'll know. It sounds like you already look at them,
Yeah.
so
Oh, he'll let me know.
you'll know.
He'll let me know. Thank you.
All right,
Designated.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Yep, refer them both.
Yeah, we'll refer.
Yeah,
There's no
let's see.
motion needed on that. Okay, number 12 is VAC truck grant discussion.
That doesn't need a motion, right?
The referral? No.
No, okay, that's what I said. Then you looked.
We're
There
just
you
saying
go.
hello.
Yeah.
It's been a year.
It's been a year, right?
So the VAC truck grant discussion. So this is basically the same grant that we put in and did not get our truck, but we're going to go after it again. So my understanding is we need to declare ourselves as lead agency,
Really?
identify the proposed action as a type 2 action under SECRA,
Yep.
complete and execute the required grant documents, and authorize a 25% match for funding of the $325,000 VAC truck. So I'll put that in form of a motion.
Let me just ask a question, maybe that's where you...
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you could tell us, I think we know, maybe other people want to know, what is the purpose of the VAC truck? Someone asked me that yesterday. And then North Salem has one. I remember when we went through the pervious pavement and why we would need a VAC truck. They have one. I was under the impression that we were using theirs and compensating them. I checked with the director of finance, said, no, we haven't. I don't know if we've used them. He said, but we haven't financed it with them. Or he said that may be something you want to consider. So I wonder if you just comment on those two things.
Sure, and I'm Steve Robbins, consulting town engineer, and in our planning support role with the town, we're working with the town's grant consultant to proceed with these applications. So we're acting as a facilitator in that role. My understanding from the highway department is that they contract out these services, and so having this piece of equipment in-house over the course of several years will save the town money if they were to purchase this piece of equipment as opposed to contracting the services out. In addition to pervious pavement, it's also used for cleaning catch basins in the town and meeting the town's MS4 obligation for stormwater management for those purposes as well.
So this goes over a dry, impervious surface, and then actually can go into a catch basin and pull out water.
It's a
and
big
junk?
vacuum on the back of a truck. So
We'll use it both here in this parking lot and over at Reese Park.
Yeah.
and for
That was part of getting that
And we have a
grant.
big list of catch basins that need to get addressed,
yes,
right?
yes,
Correct?
yes.
So basically what we're saying is if we get the grant for $81,000, we'll get a $325,000 vacuum truck. I mean,
That's
Yes.
a
no
no-brainer.
brainer.
But just the question that the director of finance brought to me is, to your knowledge at least, have we discussed this with North Salem about using theirs, and is there grants for that, is what he asked me. I didn't know the question, but Warren Lucas apparently has said, yes, we'd be open to that. Do you know of any discussion?
That would be a better question for the highway superintendent. I'm not in
Right,
a position to
I
answer
think I
that.
can weigh in a little bit on that. The truck would come with their driver. I think I remember hearing Nick go through this. At what point we would have to pay for the driver. They wouldn't just bring the truck over and use it. So I don't know if it was a decision
Yeah.
between what we're paying them to borrow their truck or contract out. I think the best solution is to get our own vac truck.
Do we know how many days that we use that? Do you know that from highway? I remember the part, as Tom said, from here and in Reese with the pervious pavement, that must be clean because it gets clogged, literally.
Yeah.
But do you know how many days that we typically would use it with the highway department?
I can't
Did he
give you
happen
that
to say?
number, but I believe there's more need for the service than what the town currently is
Yes,
able to
that's
obtain
what I
by
was gonna
contracted
say.
services.
I think they could use it, you know, if we're contracting it out a certain number of days, if we had our own, he could assign a guy to it who, you know, every week he could be out there doing a different catch basin.
Right, and another use for this truck is we clean around our lakes, and this vac truck will be used for doing that, like Purdy, Shenorock, and Lincolndale.
So there's a wide range of uses.
Yeah, I just think we'd find that if we didn't do this, if we continued to contract it out, or if we worked out with North Salem, that the $81,000 would be spent quickly, and we wouldn't have an asset to show for it. We would just keep paying. If we have the asset, obviously there's upkeep to it, But I just think with the number of catch basins we have, with the number of lakes that we have and ponds and all that,
Yeah, and
I think it makes sense.
Right, and I see our stormwater infrastructure expanding, and which is going to mean more catch. I've seen, I guess Nick's been working over in Dean's Bridge, and I've seen at least 4 new catch basins put in.
Really?
Yeah. So I think there's going to be an expanded use for this as well.
Okay.
So I have a motion.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Tell us about
Okay, now the townhouse grant discussion. Just before we have the discussion, I just want to correct D. So we'd be asking to authorize a 50% match for the funding of a $500,000 grant.
Oh, that does change it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the one that we're talking about. It's for the basement and all that.
Yeah,
I
this-
read all the documents on it. I don't know how we
Yeah,
can't
we
do it.
paid for an evaluation a number of years ago.
It's almost
right?
crazy.
Well, Steve,
all
I'll
the
let you.
things that's
No, that's fine. Correct. The town had an architect come out and provide an evaluation of a number of portions of this building, waterproofing, some structural improvements. There are some other needs as well, including a roof over this room that were not captured in that analysis, but that have also been identified by the building department as being needs. And with both of these applications, the reason this is coming forward is this is the time of the consolidated funding application for grants through the various programs of the state. The prior vac truck was part of a DEC grant program. This is part of a state historic preservation office grant program. And so this is the town looking to take advantage of these grant programs to try to fund some of the needs in town for capital investments. So it's not a given. These are competitive grants, but they do require a town board resolution and support and completion of the seeker process for both of them.
In your conversations with the grant writer, I know some of them have said, you can piggyback grants, and so that it cuts down your own expense. Has she mentioned anything about that, or are there any possibilities for that to cut down on that expense?
As far as I'm aware, with these 2 grants, these are the opportunities that are being pursued. There aren't multiple grants that can be layered on top of each other to meet that local match, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
Yes, I was just wondering if she mentioned that.
Not in my conversations with her, no.
Okay, so 13 townhouse grant issue. We're going to declare ourselves as lead agency, identify the proposed action as a type 2 action under SECRA, complete and execute the required grant documents, and authorize a 50% match for the funding of a $500,000 grant. That's a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Gotta do what you gotta do.
So moved. Yeah, we have to take care of the building.
Yeah, it's an old building.
Okay, moving on, thank you,
Thank you.
Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Moving on to Parks and Recreation. Authorize the supervisor to accept with gratitude a $10,625,000 donation from the Somers Lions Club to provide scholarships for day camp participants per memo dated June 21st, 2021, from Steve Ralston, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation. So we acknowledge that donation and really appreciate the Somers Lions Club. Clearly a community organization that really gives back to the community.
And I just want to add that I ran over to the camp last week. Much smaller attendance, obviously, this year.
Yeah.
But the kids were having a ball. It's sort of like right before camp started, they removed some of the restrictions, so they were able to use the Gaga ball pits and do all stuff like that. So they were all having a ball when I was over there. And hopefully next year, we'll be back up to the normal, 400 or so kids.
Right.
But the ones
Do you
that
know
are-
the number right now?
It's in the
around-
hundreds.
Yeah, it's around 120.
23 or something.
Yeah, it's about 25%.
And I really
I know it's from my house. It's not as noisy as usual.
And I think why the numbers are so down, because when we were taking applications
Yeah.
for the camp, we were still under restrictions.
Yeah.
And it made it sound like you're going to be in this group, you can't leave this group.
Oh my God, yes.
Your group can't mingle with this group, and you can only do that. It sounded
Yeah.
too restrictive. And you're saying, hey, I can take my kid out and do something better.
I mean, they were
So-
just following the state guidelines, so. I
Right,
don't-
but the governor.
But from the point of view of a parent and a kid.
Little late in the.
Well, that's happened.
Yeah.
Because they were all running around, they were all, like I was saying, even the thing, when you couldn't combine, how do you play in a goggle ball pit with 2 kids?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but there were, there were a whole group of them in there, so it was good.
Awesome.
That number there, that donation just points up, though, that, as does the food bank. We live in a wonderful town with people who have been very successful, but there's still those in need, and we do need to take care of them and never forget them, because on the surface you may not see it, but they're there. The schools know they're there. The Lions Club know they're there. Food bank knows they're there, and we should always take care of our friends and neighbors here.
Yeah, and just you bring up the food pantry, and the
food
Lions
pantry.
Club has a Somers Care program.
Oh, right.
Where they've been supporting these families all through the pandemic.
Yeah, that's great.
So thank you, Somers Lions Club.
Yeah, Bill's involved in that.
Yeah, I'm a past president myself. Great organization. Okay, next, current vacancies on our affordable housing and partners in prevention, upcoming vacancies of the Affordable Housing Board. Number 3, authorize the appointment of Brian Linkletter as interim police chief at an annual salary of $65,000, effective May 15th, per memo dated May 21st, 2021, from Rick Morrissey, supervisor. So this is a motion to make this appointment.
Second. This is great.
Yeah.
I mean,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Now,
so
Rich.
moved. Yes. No, it is great.
this,
do a
this
great
guy is
job.
great.
Do a great job.
But I have to say,
Right man at the right time.
talk about timing. Really, the only reason why he can accept the position
Yes.
is because the police cap has been waived
Right.
due to COVID, and we're working on trying to get it permanently waived for the first officer in charge position.
Right. Senator Markham
Excuse me.
said
Thank
he's doing his best on it.
Yep. Okay, and I want to acknowledge the resignation of William Premioso as Chief Fire Inspector for the Town of Somers Building Department for 33 years, effective June 19, 2021.
That's a long time.
Yeah, Bill has been an asset to the town for all these years. And I just noticed with curiosity, Chief Driscoll,
Yeah.
Sergeant Barker, they 30, 33 years, 35 years, and now Bill with 33 years. So Bill, donated. He participated in fire inspections for these 33 years. Always had the best interests of the town in mind, and he's been through some rough times, but he always came back. So Bill, we wish you nothing but good health and prosperity in your retirement.
Absolutely.
Okay, our consensus agenda. Number 2, I want to make a correction. A letter B, and that's the nutrition program in Van Tassel House from September 1, 2021 through August 31st, 2022. So it should not be 21, it should be 22.
Roger.
So with that correction,
It's going back and done.
I'll make a motion to accept the consensus agenda, items 1 and 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you for that. Okay, which brings us to our next meeting, scheduled meeting, which is a combined work session, regular meeting, August 5th at 7 p.m., at which time we will have the public hearing on the consolidation of water districts and a public hearing on the proposed revisions to the Town of Somers Comprehensive Plan update. So we do have some announcements. Might I call upon our town clerk to?
She's experienced in this.
Yes.
Sure. So, the Somers Parks and Rec Department and the Somers Historical Society are putting on Saturdays in the Park a summer concert series. And the dates for July are this Saturday, July 10th, with Stephen Ergola.
Scott.
I'm sorry, Scott.
Great guitarist.
This will be his 18th year performing his Woody Guthrie Hootenanny.
Wow.
And then on July 24th, Mike Burns and Friends, which is a bluegrass band and a local gentleman, is also going to be playing. And these both are at Mount Zion Church. All concerts are free and they begin at 5 p.m. Everybody is encouraged to bring a picnic dinner and a chair or a blanket.
So I just want to mention, before we move on to the next thing, Mike Burns did an excellent job. He sang at the Memorial Day celebration, so.
That's who that was?
Yeah.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah, he did a great job. Yeah, a cappella, too. No cappella, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next announcement we would like to make is that the town of Somers held its blood drive on June 29th, and it was a huge success. It brought in 74 pints of blood, which is one of our largest donations in many years. So thanks for everybody who donated blood. And then the Northern Westchester Joint Waterworks mandatory water restriction. So for residents of the Amawalk, Shannon-Rock, Amawalk Heights, and Windsor Farm water districts, there is a water restriction. So those living on even number addresses, they may water lawn, shrubs, and plants and gardens only on even days. Odds go on odd days. Swimming pools should not be filled
On weekends.
Yeah, why on weekends? You can fill it during the week?
Yeah, because on weekends, more people are home using water.
Okay. The use of watering hoses for street cleaning is prohibited. These restrictions do not impact indoor domestic water use. And then you can visit the town website for more details on that, or if you haven't gotten the code read, which those of us who live in that water
Okay.
district did.
And these restrictions go into effect.
Oh, I'm sorry. They are from, I gotta go, July 12th to October 12th.
Do we do this every year, or
No way.
or is this just this year for whatever?
Yeah, well, I said to Adam, why? And he said, well, the water usage has been increasing because people have been home, through the pandemic, and this is really a call not by us, but by the Northern Westchester Joint Waterworks.
Sure.
So,
So there's been an increase in demand that's resulted
Right.
in reducing.
and this has been postponed a number of times due to rainfall.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
There is an irony here, as it's a monsoon outside.
Isn't there? Isn't there?
All right, so I know I told you I was giving up my fun fact.
And
One last time.
Didn't I protest that?
Come out of retirement.
Oh, come on, make it a good
I
one
think,
now.
now that we're back to normal, I'm going to give up the fun facts. But anyway,
No, you're not.
so on this day in 1889 was the first publication of the Wall Street Journal. It was an afternoon paper and cost 2 cents.
There you go.
And it is ran consecutive ever since.
Wow.
And then on this day, in 1982, Billy Martin records his 1,000 career win as a manager.
Here, here.
Happy
For
July
Yankee fans, that's what
Way
it is.
to go, Patty. I knew you'd get it in there somewhere.
Very good. Well, thank you as always for the announcements and your fun facts.
And I have two.
Yes.
Cheating, I'm looking at my phone.
Oh.
The first public reading of the Declaration of Independence was given on this day in 1776 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
On this day.
On this day was the first public reading, which they did. You know, there were several copies that they went around the colonies. And on this day, in the next year, 1777, yeah, that's true, Vermont became the first colony to abolish slavery.
I saw that one.
Excellent. Those are fun facts.
Didn't know.
And I told my kids-
Important fun facts.
Watch the last 5
Okay.
minutes.
Watch the last 5 minutes, Brennan.
Did they do that, Richie, right after?
Is there any other issues, concerns, comments, gentlemen?
No, I'm glad to be back.
Ladies?
Nice to
Yep.
have an in-person meeting and see everybody.
Indeed, indeed it is.
Yeah, I want to apologize. I was a little bit late, but I forgot the way here.
You forgot the way here.
So I called Google Maps. And I said town board meeting, and it sent me downstairs to my computer. So
We should have put it while we were ahead.
yeah.
Yeah, really.
So you know,
Bada boom.
eventually I got here.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, Somers.
Good night.
Good to see you.